Guys, if there was ever a way I could describe an educated fool, it would be Marc Lamont Hill, okay? Because he thinks that because he has a little PhD, that he's smart and he's intelligent and that he knows everything, particularly when it comes to the race conversation. And he got a little show on Black News Tonight. Black News Tonight. Imagine if there was a show called White News Tonight, which honestly, I really think eventually one day is going to happen. Okay, it's going to happen because of conversations like this, okay, in which Marc Lamont Hill is trying to bait Mr. Christopher Rufo, whom is basically against critical race theory. And Marc Lamont Hill wants to bait him into basically saying something racist, right? Asking him about his whiteness. And this is something, guys, that I've been talking about, and I feel like it's just so important for people to recognize that what is happening right now is that the woke revolutionaries are trying to force white people to recognize their whiteness, okay? And that, in my opinion, is really going to just lead to more racial division. And Marc Lamont Hill is the leader of this coalition of woke revolutionaries that seems to want to go back to segregation. They seem to want everything in this country to be like the Jim Crow era, okay? And that's what it seems like, because that's what this conversation is going to sound like. Because if you switch both of these two guys, right, and a white man was saying the things that Marc Lamont Hill was saying, you would say this man is a flaming racist. So without further ado, let's get into this conversation, because this is ridiculous.
And if I were to say to you right now, Christopher, what do you like about being white? What would you say?
I don't know. Again, it's such an amorphous term. It's like a census term or a
but can you do me a favor? Indulge me.
It's a gotcha question. That's what it is. It's a gotcha question. He's trying to get him to say something racist for his show. That's what he's trying to do.
Indulge me for one. It's just we're running out of time. Indulge me for a minute. I understand you see it as all these things, but you surely recognize that the world sees you as white. You know the world reads you as white.
Marc Lamont Hill said, "You know the world reads you as white. They see you as white." Here's the thing. Mark knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. Christopher here, who is white, like I tell a lot of you guys, yes, white people are probably aware that they're white. Definitely aware of that. But white people don't see themselves as culturally white. Like, I don't think that's a thing. Okay, now, again, any white person watching this, correct me if I'm wrong. Okay? And black people don't have to see themselves as culturally black. But we've been taught to associate our skin color with culture when they're not necessarily the same thing. I probably have more in common with the southern white man than I do with the northern black man. Okay, on a lot of different things, because my culture is more southern and it comes from me living in the South more than it comes from my skin color. But see, Marc Lamont Hill, who is, again, a professional race baiter, he associates culture with skin color. The black man and the African man are not the same. Now, some of these woke revolutionaries who try to act like they're all the same, but they're not. They're two different cultures. Black American culture and African culture are two different cultures. And even then, there are subcultures within a much larger culture that has to do with things like location, okay? And different other aspects of the environment that people are growing up in. And I've heard African people say distinctly, no, I'm not black, I'm African. Because they recognize that culture is not just a function of skin color. Marc Lamont Hill is going to act like they are. Well, we have the shared experiences because we're dark skinned. And I would say, okay, well, if that's the case, is the dark skinned Indian man the same as the black man in America? I don't think so. Go to Asia and call the Chinese man, the Japanese man, and the Korean man, hey, no, you guys are all the same because you all look alike. They probably see that as disrespectful. Like, I'm pretty sure a lot of us have experience when we mix up Chinese people and Japanese people, right? They get mad real quick when you mix those two groups of people up because they're not the same. And their history is not necessarily peaceful. White people are not all the same just because they're white. Culture is bigger than just skin color. Does it factor into that? Sure, but they're not the same thing.
Particularly if you're saying whiteness is a thing that is being constructed as negative and shouldn't be, name something positive that you like about being white.
Well, sure. I'll answer with a thing. There's a lot of documents that are floating around public schools that say things like timeliness, showing up on time, is a white supremacist value or a white dominant value. Things like rationality, things like the Enlightenment, things like objectivity, and these are very strange things to be ascribed to a racial identity. My view is that these are actually should be ascribed to every individual human being. Every individual human being, regardless of whatever racial category we impose on them.
Well, Christopher, that doesn't answer the question.
See, here's the thing. Christopher's smart because he knows that the question of name what you like about being white, okay, or give me some positive aspects of being white. What Marc Lamont Hill is trying to do is to get him to say something that would sound benign without the context of the question. For example, if he was to say something like, well, I mean, I like, I don't know, spending time with my family and, you know, going to church, or saying something like that, that would be benign. In the larger context of the question, it really doesn't matter what he says because it's going to sound like he's admitting that he has white privilege. And that's what Marc Lamont Hill wants him to do. He wants him to recognize his whiteness and that he has certain privileges that other people don't have. But see, the problem is, and this is why I don't understand why woke revolutionaries keep doing this and they keep trying to do this, even by their own argument, they know that white people don't see themselves as white, okay? They don't see themselves as a part of a white community. They just see themselves as people. And the reason why, again, according to the woke revolutionaries, they know this is because they're in the majority, okay? So if you're in the majority and you're not a minority, then technically, because everybody around you looks the same or acts the same, you're not going to see yourself as any different. And I do think that is true for a lot of white people in this country, that they do see themselves like that. But that's not the wrong way to see yourself. I think other people should see themselves that way too. That's the key to success and true equality, in my opinion. When you value certain attributes without the context of race, that is what's going to lead to success. If hard work leads to success, then hard work leads to success. Doesn't matter if it's a black or a white person, okay? That's just not an attribute that's something that only white people can have. That's an attribute that everybody can have. But see, like I said, Rufo here is smart because he knows he can't answer the question because the premise of the question is illogical and it's flawed in the sense that Marc Lamont Hill knows that what Christopher is talking about is associating whiteness, as in white skin, being white, as negative. You guys, right, the woke revolutionaries are the people that assign attributes to whiteness. White people didn't assign attributes to whiteness. You guys did, which honestly is racist, right? That's racist. Chris can't answer the question because Marc Lamont Hill is not really, he's not answering the real question. What Marc Lamont Hill wants to do is prove the premise of critical race theory is correct, that there's some type of white power structure, and that's the way we should view our legal systems and our institutions and our history, through the lens of race. But in order for him to prove that and for him to actually have that conversation on a legitimate level, white people have to admit that they see themselves as white, okay? Which means that they're acting together as one thing, as a white community. If white people never admit to that, it makes it hard to really win the argument of critical race theory, because that's what critical race theory, because that is the premise of critical race theory. White people have to recognize themselves as a collective community that has a shared set of attributes and beliefs in conjunction to other races. Marc Lamont Hill doesn't really care about the answer. He just wants a answer because he knows that any answer in the context of the larger question can be spun as him admitting that he has some type of white privilege. Attributes that we assign to people are just assigned to you based off being a human. Okay, these are universal attributes. These attributes have nothing to do with your race, your skin color, whatever, right? Like, you know, being on time or believing in rationality and science and strong family values and things like that. No. That's not just for white people. That's for everybody. And that's why I said Christopher was smart for him to respond that way. Because Marc Lamont Hill was trying to get him with a gotcha. He was trying to bait him. And see, this is how people like Marc Lamont Hill that call themselves academics, this is how they like to try to use language to try to trick people into saying things that fits the narrative that they want to show.
No. You're telling me you're making straw men about things that are ascribed to whiteness that you think are wrongfully ascribed to whiteness. I'm saying if whiteness isn't a negative thing, and there's something that you actually, and that whiteness actually shouldn't be constructed as all negative, name something positive about being, that you believe is positive about being white.
Again, I don't buy into the framework that the world can be reduced into these metaphysical categories of whiteness and blackness. I think that's wrong. I think we should look at people as individuals. I think we should celebrate different people's accomplishments. And again, I think the idea, you mentioned Ignatieff. Ignatieff says the goal is to, quote, abolish the white race. In any other context, this would be interpreted as a near genocidal slur. I don't buy into it. The reason I'm not going to answer your question is I reject that categorization. I think of myself as an individual human being with my own capabilities. And I would hope that we could both judge each other as individuals and come to common values on that basis.
Fair enough. I would argue, though, that the ability to say I don't see race.
Yep. Bam. There you go. There you go. You see what I'm saying? He was gonna take anything that he said to try to make it out to be. See, he got white privilege. He got white privilege. That's what he was trying to do. You see how he smiled at the end? Because he was like, well, the fact that you're saying that you can see yourself as an individual, well, that's just the characteristic of whiteness as well, right? Only white people can see themselves as individuals. I would say that's a characteristic of being white, when it's not. It's not. White people are not the only people that can see themselves as just plain old everyday Americans. I think most people would like to see themselves that way. But it's hard for us to see ourselves that way when we always have race baiters like Marc Lamont Hill always trying to bring up race. And everything this guy is saying, man, to me, it just sounds more racist than anything I've ever heard from conservative talking heads. It's so funny how people on the right are painted as flaming racist when they never talk like this. They never talk like this. I mean, just imagine if somebody was on White News Network and they had a black person on set as a guest and they asked that person, can you name me one positive thing about being black? People's heads would explode. People's heads would explode. But see, if I was on that show, if I was on that panel, I would tell Marc Lamont Hill that a characteristic of being black is being able to say bullshit like that and get away with it and not have anybody question you on your own racism. The fact that you can openly be racist towards people and nobody call you out on it, yeah, that's a characteristic of being black. That's what I would say. That would be my counterpoint. Because that's what he's doing. And it's so funny to me how these people always want to try to call out white folks. Oh, white privilege this, white privilege that, with their own privilege. Privilege that they know that only they have. Only he can say something like that. Nobody white will be able to say something like that. And quite honestly, guys, listen. If people want to divide themselves up in society based off race, I really don't care. I just want it to be done equally. If you can be pro-black, people can be pro-white, right? Otherwise, if you want to be pro-black, you have to be okay with somebody else being pro-white, or you can't have any of it. That's the way I want it to be. I just want it to be equal. I really don't care what you want to be. I really don't. But again, I just don't see a world where we can have a white news network and they ask questions like that and race bait like that. So, anyways, man, Marc Lamont Hill, shouldn't be surprised because, you know, this is the same dude that went on Candace Owens' show and tried to imply that biological men can have babies and all this other crazy stuff. So, it is what it is, but let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a black conservative perspective. Peace.